We're going to turn it over to our guest speakers for the night. Introducing Katlyn and Emma. Thanks for being our speakers tonight. They're going to talk to us about wholesaling. I gave it the name, will someone really sell their house at a discount? Why? So they're going to talk to us about that. And thanks for speaking, ladies.
Thank you, Tyler.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So how many of you were here, I think it was probably about 6 months ago when Danny O'Bannon did his presentation?
6 months ago?
I don't know. It was a few months. It was a while ago. So Danny O'Bannon is a pretty big deal wholesaler out of Spokane. And so we are probably the opposite of that presentation. We are just getting started with our business. And so we just wanted to kind of bring it back to basics and talk to you about how we got started and to really dumb it down for anybody who doesn't know what wholesaling is. So for those of you who know what wholesaling is, well, I guess bear with us, but maybe you can just learn a little bit about our journey getting started with our little business here.
And feel free to ask questions along the way. We'll have more question time at the end, but interrupt us if you'd like.
Cool.
So I guess we'll start with kind of the why. So Katlyn and I are obviously both agents, so why did we decide we also kind of wanted to wholesale? If I can start by saying sometimes people think that it's not a good idea to wholesale and be an agent at the same time because some wholesalers are viewed as maybe a little skeevy or that they're trying to kind of rake people over the coals. I just want to preface that Katlyn and I try to be super honest in our business and let people know that usually if you're selling your home off market, we tell you right off the bat, like you're going to get more if you put it on market, but sometimes the situation is better for them to sell it off market. So why we decided to get into it, well, there's a few reasons. It was kind of March of this year.
I think it was about March of this year was the lowest inventory that we've seen. And we really just wanted to get out there and start finding more inventory for our buyers, first of all, because we had a backlog of buyers. And then we just realized, I think there was a conversation at one of these meetings that was like, well, we just need to talk to some wholesalers in this area and see who's got some deals off market, because as a buyer, earlier this year, it was just a battle to try to get housing. So we were trying to find a wholesaler in the area that could help us with maybe some off-market stuff, and we realized that there's really nobody up here doing it. So that kind of started the ball rolling.
Yeah, we were kind of trying to focus on Bonner and Boundary County. So we knew of wholesalers in Kootenai County, but we were trying to stick up north. So yeah, no wholesalers in the area that we knew of. I was also looking for my first personal residence, so we thought it would be really cool if we could find something for myself off market. So that was a motivation. And then
we had a lot of time. We didn't have much going on. Yeah. We had a lot of buyers, and really we had extra time, and we wanted to make sure that we were putting our time in and not just spinning our wheels writing offers and offers and offers on houses that weren't going anywhere. So
that was kind of where we started.
Okay, cool. So what is wholesaling?
So who here knows what wholesaling is and wants to tell the group? Okay, yes, please, Silas.
You find somebody who wants to sell their property, you make an offer on it, but you make an offer that you can assign to somebody else, and when you go to the title company, you assign it to somebody else, and then you take a small portion or a large portion, depending on how big it is and how much profit it is to take.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So if you didn't hear Silas, he said that you find a property, you actually get it under contract yourself, but then you assign that contract to somebody else who intends to fully close on it, and usually there's a bit of a difference in the price, and then you take a bit of a fee there. Does anyone want to add to that?
It's finding off-market deals and usually selling to an investor, or personally we wanted to get into some flips ourselves, so either finding deals that you would use for yourself as an investor or assign to somebody else who is looking for off-market deals. So yeah, when we got started, we really didn't know what wholesaling was, so we started with Googling how to wholesale a house. That was probably the first step. And then really we just started talking to people in the business. I think that's part of what this meeting is for is just going to the experts and not having to teach yourself from the bottom up. So we spent a lot of time talking to like Josh Cote, who's on our team and a wholesaler. Talked to my brother in Denver, he is a wholesaler. We talked to Nick, and we just talked to Danny O'Bannon. He invited us over to his office and gave us some tips. So we tried to focus on learning as quickly as we can by spending time talking to the experts. But we really knew that the best way to learn is to jump in and just start it, and that we would learn mostly by doing.
Well, yeah.
And we listen to podcasts, so.
Oh yes, and we also listen. We listen to podcasts. This is us Googling how to wholesale a house. Okay, so we've been talking to people. We kind of know what wholesaling is. Now we're ready to start. So what did we do?
Let me backtrack and say real quick that a lot of big time wholesalers spend a lot of money on marketing. And as we mentioned before, something that we had a lot of was time, but we certainly just didn't have thousands of dollars to put towards marketing every month. So we kind of needed to start figuring out how to get ourselves out there without spending the money. So
yeah, the first thing that we really decided that we wanted to do, which I think actually Katlyn's brother was doing in Denver and was actually working for him, was door knocking. So we did a lot of door knocking, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then as we went on, our team actually kind of gave us the opportunity to utilize an app called Deal Machine. So they helped fund a little bit of that. Deal Machine is an app where you can drive for dollars, which is basically you go out and you drive around. Usually you're looking, with wholesaling, you're looking for distressed properties. And you're able, with this app, to quickly kind of snap a photo of the house that you're interested in and send postcards out to them. And then also with the app, you're able to skip trace, find their number or email. And so then we actually, as well as postcards, we started calling people directly. And you'll see we kind of had various successes with each of these, really. So that's kind of how we started door knocking. We didn't want to spend any money. Then we kind of moved into the different methods where we did have to spend some more money, but it ends up being worth it, really. So
Emma, what was the name of that app you used?
So it's Deal Machine.
Deal Machine, yeah, it's a good app. I'd recommend it. We haven't used any other apps, but
yeah. So we just with door knocking, what we did was we literally went around and knocked on doors and asked people. We said, "Hi, my name is Katlyn. This is my friend Emma, and we are looking for a house to buy in the area. Have you considered selling this year?" Just cut right to the chase, and then see what they have to say. And then when they said no, we would say, "Do you know anybody who is looking to sell?" We also, when we were door knocking, we wanted to, we realized that we probably wouldn't talk to a lot of people, so we would leave a handwritten postcard on their door that we wrote ahead of time, so that even if we didn't actually speak with somebody, when they came home, they would see that somebody had been there, and we wrote it out, and it said, "Sorry, we missed you," and then we went into, we're looking to buy a house. Yep.
Do you guys focus on certain parts of town, or do you just kind of do it indiscriminately?
I would say honestly for Sandpoint, like we wanted to hit all of Sandpoint because Sandpoint's really small, a lot of wholesalers. So we talked to Danny O'Bannon, who mostly does bigger cities, Spokane, or I think he does Seattle area too. He thinks we're crazy for doing it here because there's just not enough houses. So we kind of just wanted to do everything. I think with door knocking though.
We didn't go door knocking on a lake house, on Pondere or in South Sandpoint. We looked mostly for distress, but we focused on areas where lower price point homes, if there is that here in Sandpoint.
And especially, again, really focusing on homes that look distressed from the outside, and that it seems like someone maybe isn't taking as good a care as they could be of it.
Something that I wish we had had when we started door knocking was the Deal Machine, because something that is really helpful about that app is when you click on a house, a lot of times we'll be like, well, that looks kind of distressed, not sure, but we click on it and you can see if it's an absentee owner, and so we would always jump on the absentee owners because they might want to take advantage of selling. So, cool, next. We're good.
Yeah. Our photos don't want to load.
Bummer.
Quick question, how was your financing set up prior to this?
How was our financing set up?
If you knock on the door and somebody says yes, now you gotta get financing, or did you already have that prearranged?
Yeah, we'll talk about that because we're gonna, I think up next kind of is our first deal. Definitely another huge reason that we knew we'd hopefully be able to be successful is the fact that we're on this team and we have so many investors and coming to these meetings. Like, I think we were both really confident that if we found a deal, we'd easily be able to find a buyer for it. So we weren't necessarily securing financing for ourselves. If there was a deal that we wanted to buy, we would have to kind of figure that out. But our main intention was to find an investor who was interested in it. And I think, I mean, raise your hand if you would like to buy an off-market deal. That is a great opportunity. Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of just knew that we had enough connections where we'd be able to make it work.
We also have private money connections from this group too, and so we knew that if it were something that we wanted to close on, we could, or that we needed to close on, that we could. So our first bite was at Walnut Street in town, and we got it from door knocking. So it was actually the first day that we went door knocking, and I remember it specifically because we were very nervous to get started with this. And I just remember being kind of petrified of going from door to door and having to deal with that rejection, but it was much easier with a partner. So we did it, and I remember we were going back to the car because we had a certain amount of postcards we wanted to leave, and that meant that we had kind of reached our goal for the day. And then I saw one more house out of the corner of my eye, and we went over there and we left the postcard. And so then he called us, well, he texted us, and he had said to us, hey, what's your offer? And I know what I'm sitting on. I've got 4 city lots.
So yeah, basically from there, obviously we were like, what do we do? So the first thing we kind of were hoping to figure out was determining his number, right? So if we can figure out how much he's willing to sell it for, then maybe we can figure out how much we could sell it to an investor for. After Katlyn and him had talked a bit more, he let her know that he had turned down an offer for $360, I think within that year. So we kind of knew we needed to come up more than that.
Yeah, we knew it had to be above $360 or it just was a waste of time. So first step was finding out, is this property even worth that, or do we need to just go ahead and see if he wants to list it instead and test it on the market.
Yeah.
This was a double wide house that was next door neighbors to Lighthouse Factory, and so when we pulled the comps, we knew that $360 probably wasn't even the market value to put it on the market at that time. So we did some more digging, and we just determined that the highest and best value for that was actually that it was 4 city lots. And so we knew that we could sell it to a builder who would want to develop it, because that your lot price there, if you divided it up, was much cheaper than a lot would be on the market. So that's what we did.
Yeah, so we found an investor who is in this room. John was interested, of the North Star crew, they were interested, and they were hoping to build 4 houses on it, and we thought it was going to be a great deal for everyone. We wrote an offer which left room for our fee. Everyone was going to be happy with the price, the buyer and the seller. So we did end up getting it under contract, and then we did run into a hiccup. So
we learned some lessons.
We were learning as we go.
Number one, when you are looking at a property, trying to determine the ARV, you want to check zoning. So. As I mentioned, this property was next door neighbors to Lighthouse. Well, what do you know? It's zoned industrial. So,
so we figured the highest and best use would be to tear down the manufactured home and build 4 new homes. Zoning did not allow for that.
You cannot do that. So
obviously the investor who wanted to build, that wasn't going to work. So it kind of fell out of contract there. So we re-strategized. The great thing about us being agents is we're still able to offer our services putting it on the market. So we kind of worked that out with him. We ended up putting it on the market for $299 and we sold it for $341. So he was still pretty happy with that.
Yeah. I want to back up real quick. We do build in an inspection period on our wholesale deals. That, I guess it's not necessarily typical for wholesalers to do that. They sometimes get the property for so low that it's just a shoo-in regardless of the condition. But I know for us at least, and because we're personally working with our investors, we want to make sure that we have time to do due diligence. And so far it's worked out for us to build in an inspection period. And that leaves it so that the investor can back out, or in a situation like this where we realize this is not an investor deal, we can just terminate the contract.
So it wasn't our first wholesale deal, but we kept chugging along. We got our second bite in Pondere, 96 4th Street. Here's a photo. We actually used all three methods on this house before we really ended up eventually getting it under contract. So the first time we came into contact with the person who was living there, we door knocked and she answered. She was very nice and she told us that her father owned the home and he might consider selling, but she wasn't exactly sure. And then we eventually did send them postcards, and then I think you were the one who called and spoke with George, the owner of the home.
So once we got Deal Machine, we hit that house again because it was a good one. It looked very distressed from the outside. The location is a little bit less than desirable, so we sent the postcard and then we skip trace through our list. So we already had our list of leads, and then you just pay a little extra to skip trace and get their phone numbers, and they give you a list of phone numbers and you just call them. And we did. We got him on the phone and he said, yeah, I'm looking to sell. So we just started the conversation.
And again, just to like reiterate the point, for wholesaling, really you need to have one of two things, maybe both, which is either you need a motivated seller, a distressed property, or potentially a distressed seller. And then, yeah, with this one, it was kind of repeated follow-up, which really helped us out. So here's just some photos of this house. Hopefully you can see it's quite old and it really hadn't been taken care of. It was small. I think it's like less than 900 square feet. This is after the woman living there moved out, so there was a lot of stuff in there.
And my photos have filters on them, so these photos look pretty good. So yeah, those are some photos. So we started, and when I was making my offer, we started by, he wouldn't give us a number. So the first step that we were taught was always try to get them to give you their number first before you blurt out a number or write an offer, because hey, they may be willing to sell for less, or you might insult them if you give them a number that is way out of the ballpark, when you should just be putting on the market instead if they wanted it way up there. So we couldn't get a number from him. He said to us that he owned the property free and clear, and that he did not think the property was worth more than the land value because of the location and the condition of the house. And I said to him, I said, well, your assessed land value is about $45,000. I think we can give you a little bit more than that. And so we offered him $125,000. And we went out there, we met him in person. This was an elderly sick man. And so we went out to him personally so he could meet us. We brought Tyler along with us because originally we were gonna work together and do it as a flip for ourselves. And yeah, we got it under contract for $125,000.
Yeah, so after we got an inspection on it, we realized there was a lot going on that we were a little anxious with for the flip. So we kind of decided it might be a little bit too much for us to take on, but we knew it would still be a good deal for an investor. But we did negotiate the price down to $115,000 after the inspection, just because of everything that we did find wrong with it, and he was actually okay with that. He jokingly, after we signed the paperwork, he said, "Joke's on you, I would have sold it to you for $60,000." So,
yeah.
So we knew that everyone was going to be happy in the deal.
We did want to make sure, this was a win-win. We knew his situation, and we certainly didn't want to pull a fast one on him. So back up to the inspection real quick. I mean, if we had had contractors ready to go and experience with flipping, it would have been a great deal for us, but not for our first flip. So that's really why we chose to pass it on to somebody who had experience and contractors ready to go. We ended up assigning it at $135 to an investor, and we determined the ARV was around $250. So it ended up being a pretty good deal. We'll go right back to that one. Who was at Nick's meeting last week? Anybody? Okay, so he talked about the 70% rule. So really you want to get a property, if you're going to sell it to an investor, you want to make sure that they're getting it for about 70% ARV after repairs.
So that's kind of what we did. So just think, if our ARV is 250,000, 70% of that, and then subtract your repairs, and that actually comes out pretty close to the 135. I guess I don't know exactly what the repairs on this house are going to cost, but I think we were thinking maybe around 50,000, depending on what would be done. So again, we talked about how it's nice that we have this team of investors who want to buy our houses. So Nick and Joe were the ones who actually decided that they were happy to buy it. So we have a stay tuned for Little America, which is
a future project,
future project that is being worked on as we speak.
So what we know now, as we kind of worked through our first couple of deals, really important to be confident and transparent with your intentions. I know at first I was afraid that I wouldn't explain it correctly, or that they would get cold feet and not want to sell it if they realized we were selling it for less than market value. But we really just kind of learned to understand that if it's not a motivated seller, then you don't want to work with them. Don't waste your time with tire kickers who just want to give you a free market value of their house, or think that you're going to offer them a cash deal at market value.
Yeah, so for wholesaling, find motivated sellers. And then also, just to go along with that, when we started this business too, we knew that wholesaling was going to just supplement our business as agents. So we knew if we weren't finding people who wanted to sell under market value, then we would just get listings out of it. So it was a win-win really for us.
A lesson learned, here's a quote here: "Are you kidding me? Don't ever contact me again." And that was a direct quote. One of our campaigns in the beginning, we were writing handwritten postcards and mailing to Canadians who couldn't access their properties because of COVID. So we did get a bite, and we had not learned some of our lessons, which are find out if they're a motivated seller before you give them an offer. And so we did our little calculation, 70%, and we sent him an offer, and
this was the response.
He was insulted. So don't waste your time writing an offer if you below market value if you don't know that they're motivated. And then you want to make sure you're using a trusted title company. Silas mentioned a major part of this process is at the beginning, when you write an offer on the property, make sure it's assignable. Otherwise, you're going to be buying it. So make sure the contract is assignable so that you can go ahead and just assign the deal to an investor, and make sure you are writing on the contract a title company that does that, because there are title companies that will not do assignments. I know here in town, Title One will do it, and Next Title does it as well in Coeur d'Alene.
Alliance Title will do it.
Alliance Title?
Cool. Yeah.
That was kind of fast and furious. I know we probably just brushed over it, so I don't know who's got questions about our process or about how to get started or anything?
So are you just writing a letter of intent and they sign that, and then you're allowed to then?
No, so since we are agents, that's a good question. We always disclose that we are licensed agents, and we actually, since we are agents, need to use a purchase and sale agreement. So we write on the contract that we would be writing for anybody that would be buying a normal house.
What if you're not an agent?
It's a good question. If you're not an agent, we do have documents that are pretty basic for assignments and purchases that we use for the actual assignment portion of it, but I know that for our offers, we do both.
You could have an attorney draft up a purchase and sale agreement for you. You can Google one and try that method. You don't have to be an agent to make offers on homes.
This is true.
I recently took the state portion of the Idaho real estate exam, and to study I actually read the law code book. And from what I read, now I might have not read right, but from what I read, you have to have a license even to wholesale.
I think that's a newer law, but I heard that within the last 6 months as well, in Idaho at least.
I think it might vary from state to state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's not misinterpreted a lot. They can wholesale.
This is, wouldn't wholesale contractors fall under like a owner carry?
Well, so what really gets, what people screw up is that the act of acquiring buyers and sellers in a database can be seen as practicing real estate without a license. So if you're purposely just trying to buy properties and make them assignable, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're out there marketing and trying to get a buyer's list, you know what I mean by that? Yeah. A buyer's list of investors. That in itself is practicing real estate without a license, according to the Idaho Real Estate Commission. But if you're out there just trying to buy properties and make them assignable, I mean the assignable is still on the contract, so you can wholesale because it's on the contract that says you can make it assignable, sell it, you can, for compensation, you can sell this contract. It says right there, written by Idaho attorneys. So that's not illegal. It's just the way of going about doing your business. You can do some things that are seen as practicing real estate without a license.
I think as Jessica said, it's a bit of a gray area.
It's gray area, but it's not illegal.
I like being able to offer both. I like that I'm an agent because it's tough. I mean, there are plenty of people who want to sell in this market, but we've had one wholesale deal and 5 or 6 listings, you know, just from these methods. So there are definitely more folks that just want to sell on market, which is great. Like if they just want to test the market out, we're able to help them with that too. So I personally like being able to offer them both, and it's a pretty easy conversation just to see what they need.
Do you guys have any like negative experiences knocking, or has it been mostly positive?
Question was if we have negative experience door knocking. Yeah, yeah. So a couple. John is smirking at me, so we'll just start with that. John really wanted properties in Ethel behind the elementary school. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with that area, but John sent us over there door knocking personally, and lots of folks over there are going to just die in their house, and damned it if I'll sell it to you. So that was fun. And then was it Ponderay or Kootenai?
It was Ponderay. In like old Ponderay, we had one gentleman who was. What'd you say?
You gotta tell them about the lawnmower guy.
The lawnmower guy.
Oh shoot.
Well, so there was one in Ponderay, highly distressed property. We knocked on the door, ready to do our spiel, and kind of a teenager answered the door it was all dark inside, and he was like playing video games, and I was like kind of, I don't know, weirded out, and he just was like, oh yeah, let me talk to my dad. I'll go get my dad. So his dad comes to the door, and a very large fella, and he said, what do you want? And I just went through my, oh, hi, my name's Katlyn, and this is Emma, and we're looking to buy a house, and he just cuts us right off. And what did he say?
I think he said, who the FRU, walking around knocking on doors when kids are home and COVID, basically like, get the fuck out.
Yep.
Using those words.
Yep. And so I just said, okay, great. I'm sorry. Have a great day. And he goes, okay, great. I'm sorry. Have a great day. so that was fun. But I will tell you, starting with door knocking makes calling a hell of a lot easier. So yeah, it's perfect just to kind of get those experiences under our skin, because now it's not too hard to get yelled at from the other side of the phone.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
What does closing look like when you have an investor and a seller? Do you guys do that simultaneous closing, or do you have them in separate rooms?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways that like wholesalers close deals. I know there's double closings where like Katlyn and I would actually close on the house, and then basically same day you immediately sell it to the investor. We didn't do that. Closing,
it's not as transparent that way, we'll just say. So that's what we felt, at least. We found in those double closings, you know, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like they know that there's a second buyer, and some of those, they could close and not know that there's a second buyer in that situation.
So we haven't done a double closing before, which is maybe what you're referring to. I guess I don't know exactly. I mean, so we went to the closing with George, which was the seller, because we had a relationship with him and he knew how much he was selling it for, and then the buyers knew how much they were buying it for, and that was kind of
your fee was disclosed.
The buyers knew the fee. The seller didn't necessarily know how much the buyers were buying it for. I will say that, but yeah. Yes.
Did you find a difference, and I think I know the answer to the question already, but the difference between the in-town versus rural areas? Did you spend most of your time like in Monterey or in a congested area?
Yeah, we have definitely driven around some more rural areas and tried to do deal machine, but I would say pretty much all of our responses are more
neighborhoods.
In-town neighborhoods. And that's probably just because we're getting more volume, you know.
We tried to go out to Sagal and things like that, but they're much bigger properties, so when you're going driving, you're getting a lot less. And so our best return right now has been neighborhoods, because you just go and you get, and I know we went to Spirit Lake and got like 80 houses, you know, in an hour or whatever it was, and quite a bit of response. So I just think that as we go through, we're learning that, you know, good luck getting a Sandpoint wholesale deal. Probably best to go to Honduras, Kootenai, Bonners Ferry, just some areas that are not as high in demand.
What's your best marketing methods as far as, like, did you guys track like your percentages from each marketing method?
Yeah, so I mean, we've only gotten one wholesale deal closed, and that was from all three methods, but our return on callbacks and response rate is definitely when we go and we drive for dollars and then we skip trace and we call them.
Yeah, I think calling has been most effective. We've gotten a decent amount of listings from people calling us on postcards. But again, like, most of these people aren't extremely motivated sellers, so of course when we tell them their options, they're going to prefer to put their house on the market and get as much as they can for it, which again we think is a win-win for everyone. We're happy to get listings as well, but yeah.
How does one get on your list of buyers so that you can share all this wealth with our lovely REI team, or I mean the people here?
Well, that was going to be our closing spiel, but if anybody wants to get on our list, so the process is now, as we get more deals under contract, we send them out to you guys, hopefully first. And I just think that we like being kind of small town, I would say, in this business, tight knit, because we can really help people in this room out instead of just sending out a mass mailer to 100, or so investors. We'll just send it to you guys. We don't really have anybody else on our list. So if you want to be on our list, come chat with us. We'll get you on it. Cool. Any other questions?
Or make sure you're on the sign-up sheet.
Or that, yeah. Is there anybody on the sign-up sheet that does not want to receive off-market deals? Okay.
Cool. Well, thanks.
Yeah.